favorite chefs, Marco Pierre White. And he brought up this interesting point in a recent podcast where he said that one of the most frustrating things about running a Michelin-starred restaurant was that the people who were judging whether his cuisine was worthy of a Michelin star, making it the best cuisine that they could get, were not chefs. They were not nearly as knowledgeable. All these people did, according to Chef White, was sit in his restaurant, be fussy little brats, drink too much, critique food that had taken hours of blood, sweat, and tears by multiple sous chefs and, dishwashers and executive chefs and prep cooks to make perfect. And here they are, acting like a bunch of drunken sailors, sitting at one of the best restaurants in Europe, determining by their subjective experience whether or not the food was worthy of a Michelin star. And I thought to myself, this is something that I can relate to. Now, why is it that I can relate to it? Well, number one, all of us hate being judged. All of us. Because anytime you perform a specialized service, that service is going to be judged by someone. And the judgment is either going to be that it is the best, or you are blowing smoke up everyone's butt. There's another term for that. But I think that Marco Pierre White and I share a common thread. Our work is typically judged by non-mechanics. It's judged by the end user, in his case, the Michelin star buffoon that is engorging himself on caviar and, some foie gras that has been prepared to look like a piece of postmodern art. In my case, whether or not the 50-year-old Mercedes that showed up at our shop, often sitting for 25 years, not running at all, no brakes, no air conditioning, no padding left in the seats, lots of play in the steering wheel, now has AC that is cold enough and Bluetooth that is clear enough for somebody's ears to hear while their engine is spinning at 4,000 RPM outside. And, to me, this is the frustrating part of the entire process of judgment. What exactly am I talking about? Well, there are two parts to performing any complicated specialized task. The first part is the part that the end user doesn't see, which is the preparation and execution. The second part is the end user experience. And the preparation and execution should aggregate to provide a good end user experience. But the problem with the end user experience is that it is subjective. In Chef White's case, it depended on whether the wine pairing went well with the escargot, or whether the steak that was on their plate had been slaughtered within the last 5 hours and went well with the red wine that they picked out from some tiny little vineyard in Burgundy that had been doing the same thing perfectly for 200 years. In my case, it boils down to whether the car is reliable, whether or not it, delivers an enjoyable point A to point B experience, whether the owners feel safe and confident driving the car. But then there are these other things that creep in because I try to be so good at my job that maybe I set the customer's expectations too high. For example, I think it's perfectly reasonable if somebody drives a car from our shop and the shop says the car is not going to break down, The car's going to be reliable. It's not going to stall. It's not going to do anything weird. It's reasonable to say the car shouldn't do those things. And if they do those things, we should take some sort of responsibility for them. But, you know, when a customer says, on the other hand, I expected the car to have more power, even though it's a 50-year-old car with, let's say it's a 280S with a 6-cylinder engine, or I expected the rear axle to be quieter because, you know, again, it's a 50-year-old gear set that we might have had to put new bearings in, and functionally there's nothing wrong with it. It's these nuanced things where people's expectations from new cars bleed into their expectations with old cars. I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is that people think that because I'm good at what I do, or try to be good at what I do, I'm also perfect at what I do, which isn't really the case. Perfection is a goal that we strive for, but it is also a reality when things are not perfect that we sometimes have to accept, whether it is me or it is the end user. A good example of this could be summarized in an analysis of how, let's say we have a hydraulic suspension system, and the car may not have perfect ride height all the way around, but the suspension holds pressure, the car handles well, it doesn't leak. But if the ride height isn't quite right, or the ability of the vehicle to maintain, I guess you could say maintain a perfect resting height is compromised, then of course then that may shed a negative light on our work, because one of the parameters that the customer expected to be met hasn't been met by the shop. Now, this is the tricky part about managing customer expectations. My strategy for this has been to always ask customers after they take delivery of their car if there are any issues with the car. And if there are any issues, then we say, please tell us what you expect from the car and what you would like for us to do to resolve them. And then, of course, I tell them, here's what I'm going to do to help you, since this is what you asked for. The issue is that sometimes people have an expectation, but they think because you didn't meet it, they're not sure about what the right thing to do is to resolve it. Now, I had one customer that, again, I don't want to name any names, but let's just say he had a 126. And when I brought the car back to him, he was preloaded with a bunch of failed expectations. What I mean by preloaded is he already knew what he was going to criticize me for, and he already knew what I was going to say. You know, some of his statements about the car were, well, after you did the repairs of the fuel system, it's not as fast as it used to be. Okay, by how much? Can you quantify? No, I just know it's not as fast. Okay, you know, that's difficult to figure out. Another one might be when I push the car harder and I get done driving it like a maniac and I let it sit in idle. It doesn't idle as smoothly as I like. Okay, well, can you tell me where the idle is deficient? Is it too rough? Is it shaky? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? And again, the parameters are not definable. And this is one of the things that makes this job incredibly frustrating, because as a professional, I think this is something that Chef White said in his interview, as a professional, you want to perform the highest, best work possible. The question becomes, is there any point in trying to please people that have unrealistically high expectations? And trying to scan for this stuff in my own work as a professional, I can't just ask someone, do you have high expectations? Can you tell me how high your expectations are? Can you compare your expectations to those of others? Because nobody's going to admit in the beginning to having high expectations. People will treat you kindly anytime you perform a professional service because they think that you're going to be able to meet those expectations without any problem. In other words, the delusion of high expectations is that there is a belief that your expectations are perfectly realistic. It's just everybody else is too incompetent to meet them. And I think that Chef White touched on this and summarized it really well, because he said that the problem with being the end user is that the gap between the, I'm paraphrasing what he said, between the gap between the end user and the gap and the person who's actually performing the service, the professional who's executing the service, is not just a knowledge gap or a performance gap. The two can't really relate to each other. This is very much the same thing as saying, just because you've changed your oil on your car doesn't mean that you are capable of and can understand the immense processes behind taking a car that has an older Mercedes that has a bunch of strange mechanical issues and resolving 95% of them to the satisfaction of the owner, whereas the other 5% get better, but they may not meet your expectations. This is a human problem because people will always focus on the deficiency. This is a cardinal rule, and this is what I'm getting to in the video. This is a cardinal rule that I live by. People will always focus on the deficiency. Oh, Pierre, why did you say that? That's so obvious. Well, if you are young and you're thinking about, if you are young and you are thinking about going into this business or any business where you perform a specialized, hard-to-find skill, I want you to remember something. People will always focus on the deficiency. And as the world has gotten more and more geared toward instantly gratifying people who are wealthy and busy and expect things to be done in a second, the culture of instant gratification, this problem has become more and more and more noticeable. And it's a type, I think it's a type of smartphone-induced cognitive decline, but people don't realize, unless they're extremely thoughtful and forward-thinking and analytical, that a difficult task can't be done without some sort of perceived deficiency. There's always going to be a deficiency, always. So at the end of the day, how much deficiency are you willing to tolerate? I have to maintain, because I'm the professional, that the goal must be 0 deficiencies. I have to maintain that. However, when the customer comes to me with that expectation, the paradox is that while I maintain that there must be 0 deficiencies, I would become absolutely off the wall, just livid, if a customer said to me, and when we're done, there have to be 0 deficiencies. So I have to maintain a standard for myself that I know is not realistic, hoping that the knowledge gap of the customer is far enough away from mine to where they perceive my understanding of 0 deficiencies as an actual functional product with 0 deficiencies. There may be deficiencies I'm aware of, but I hope that the deficiencies are so insignificant that the customer is not aware of them. This is sort of like saying, if I'm a teacher and I'm creating a perfect learning environment for my students, then I may not be able to create the perfect learning environment, but it's going to be head and shoulders above every other learning environment. And when the kids get in there, they start learning and having a great time. It means that the operation has accomplished its end goal without too much trouble. Now, if I were to take the opposite stance and say, no, there will be deficiencies in my final product, that would mean that my customers would inevitably have to receive deliberate deficiencies on my part, where they could see that I cut corners, didn't try hard enough, where I gave up trying to solve complicated problems, where I didn't go back and revise my work to make sure that I hadn't overlooked a deficiency. So then the question boils down to this: who was right? Marco, Pierre, White, or the Michelin star reviewers? Is the professional literally supposed to be the muse or the slave or the servant, whatever term you want to use, of the end user? Or is the end user supposed to be the willing, somewhat ignorant, happy-go-lucky recipient of whatever the master, in this case the chef, in my case the mechanic, chooses to do with the food or the car? This is a question that's going to be very difficult to answer. But in the meantime, I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you if you have a classic Mercedes and you didn't get very much out of this and you watched it anyway.